This video is brought to you by Azam Sharp School. You can visit Azam Sharp School at azamsharp.school, and this is your one-stop place for all the iOS content you can imagine. You can see 21 plus courses, 120 plus hours. That's just crazy. And if you take a look at all the courses that are available over here, we have MVVM and SwiftUI, test-driven development in iOS, reactive programming in combined MV pattern, and the video that you're about to watch is actually part of the full stack iOS development course. This is a 12-hour course, and if you go and check this out, it has a lot of different content, as you can see. It just goes on and on forever, and a lot of previews are also available, so you can check it out. Routing, controllers, middleware, Postgres database. Oh, it just goes on. You can see this is just unbelievable. And do you know that if you become a full stack developer, most of the time your salary goes up, because now you don't know only the front end but also the back end. So definitely, if you're a intermediate or even a beginner iOS developer and want to expand your horizon, the full stack development in iOS using Vapor will be the best option for you. So once again, check out azamsharp.school. You can get access to all the courses by monthly membership, annual membership, or if you're interested, you can also go ahead and buy individual courses. Thank you so much. Hope you enjoy this video. In order to connect and create our MongoDB database, we are going to use a service provided by MongoDB called MongoDB Atlas. This means that just like Elephant SQL, it will be hosted on MongoDB server. So the first step would be to go ahead and go to the website for MongoDB Atlas. So I'll say MongoDB Atlas. And you will need to sign in to get into MongoDB Atlas. And you can use your Google account to sign in also. So you'll go to the registration page and see over here, you can actually create your Atlas account, or you can sign in with Google. So I'm just going to go ahead and select Google. Okay, there we go. And it immediately takes me to the dashboard screen, but your screen might be a little bit different. And you can see right now that I don't really have any projects. So the first thing I need to do is I need to add a project. So let's go ahead and add a project. You will have to enter the name of the project. So I'll just call it Movies App. All right. And I'll say next. Project owner. Add member, set permissions. Okay, so these are the things that you can do. You can invite people with their email addresses. Right now, the permission that you have, I already have the permission because I just created the project. So let's go ahead and create the project. Okay, so there we go. Now it has created the project, and we can also build our database. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on the database. And it will tell you different kind of rates that are available. I'm going to go ahead and use the free tier because we're just learning these things. So free tier is fine. Provider is Amazon, that's fine. Cluster. Now, whatever the name of the cluster you want to give, I'm just going to call it Movies Cluster. All right. And I will create it. Keep in mind that this is a free account that we're using. So this means that it can be a little bit slow as compared to if you're actually paying for the account. How would you like to authenticate your connection? Username and password is fine. Username, I'm just going to use Azam Sharp. And for the password, I would like to use a different password. Now, you can auto-generate the password if you want to. That is advisable. But for now, I'm just going to say, let's say password 1234 and a $sign. All right. And that's a horrible password. Yes, I can understand that. And please do not use this particular password. Make sure that this password is secure. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a user. There we go. That's done. Next, it is telling us or asking us, where would you like to connect from? From our local environment. So this is fine. The first option that is selected, this one is fine. Cloud environment is a little bit different if you're hosting on a cloud or something, so that's fine. Entering the IP address, so make sure that you enter your IP address over here. So you can say add my IP address. It's already been added, that's fine. You can also edit the IP address, and let's say my IP address, that's fine. The description, everything is fine. We will be able to get a different IP, or we can just open it for everyone to connect, okay? So make sure that you have the IP address and everything, and go to the databases. Okay, there we go. So currently we don't really have, we have a database, but it doesn't really have any collections. Collection means that it's kind of similar to tables in PostgreSQL. It means that we don't really have any records, and records are placed in collections, so we don't really have any collections. I'm going to go to connect over here. And in the connect, again, you have so many options. Connect to your application, that's the first one that we need. So let's go ahead and click on driver. And you can select over here, you can see the driver is available for many different languages, Java, Go, Node.js, but we want to select Swift. So I'm just going to go ahead and select Swift. That's fine. And this is the connection string that is given to you. You can see that the password portion is not included over here. So this is where you have to enter the password. For my case, it will be password $1234$. So make sure that you select that, copy it, that's fine, and then we can close it. The other thing that we want to do is network access. So right now you can see in the network access, it has the IP, but I can also go edit, and I can, for testing purposes, I can also say allow access from anywhere. Make sure what you're doing over here, allow access from anywhere, simply means that anyone can access your MongoDB database, which is not really a good way to publish your databases. If you're deploying on Heroku, then you should probably add the IP addresses from the server, which will be Heroku, that will be accessing it. All right. If it's being accessed by your server, obviously. Right now, I'm just going to say allow access from anywhere, and it's going to change the IP to 0.0.0/0. This means it's available to everyone, but keep in mind that when you are deploying your application, then it will be accessed by the server, so you have to put your server's IP over here. So if it's deployed on Heroku, then you have to put the IP of your server hosted on Heroku. I can confirm it. It's currently pending right now. But apart from that, this is going to create or set up successfully the MongoDB database. All right. If you go to the database access or the actual database, you will see that we don't really have any collections, anything right now. You can see it's completely empty. There's nothing really going on because we haven't really written any code to add something, like we haven't saved anything. So that will be our next step to how to integrate our Vapor application with MongoDB database using the connection string that they provided. The first thing that we need to do in order to use MongoDB is to use the required Fluent package and also the Fluent Mongo driver. Apart from that, we also need the connection string so that we can connect our Vapor application with MongoDB. So I have already created this very basic Vapor application. And now what we can do is go to the package. And you can see that there are only one package right now. We have a Vapor package. Obviously, we're using a Vapor app, so it will have a Vapor package. But we need a couple of different other packages also, like the Fluent package. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy paste the URL for the package right there. Apart from the Fluent package, we also need the MongoDB driver. So Fluent, as you learned earlier on, is the ORM, the Object Relational Mapper. And the good thing about Fluent is that you can use it with the Postgres database, as we have learned earlier. You can use it with MySQL, you can use it with SQLite, but you can also use it with MongoDB, which is kind of cool that everything that you have learned still applies. And we're going to use the MongoDB driver, which is Fluent Mongo driver. The other thing that we need to add is a product name for our dependencies and targets. So I'm just going to go over here in my dependencies. I'm going to add the product for the Fluent right there. And as you can guess, the target for the other one, which in our case will be Fluent Mongo driver. Okay, make sure you add a comma because we are inside an array. And there you have it. So we have now added Fluent dependency for the package. We have added the Fluent Mongo driver so we can work with the MongoDB. And if you look over here on the left side, you will see that we are downloading. It has already been downloading the Fluent and the Fluent Mongo driver. Great. Let's go ahead and build our application. And once we build the application, now the next part that we need to do is to go to the configure, and we need to configure our connection to the MongoDB database. In order to configure the database, we need the connection string. So we'll have to go back to MongoDB Atlas, go to the database access. You can see that we have some stuff going on over here. That's fine. Let's see that, let's go to the database and connect. Not database access, but over here we will go to the database and we will click on connect. So we're going to use the same procedure as we were looking at in the last video. We will go to the drivers, select the correct driver. You can see we are selecting Swift over here and the version. And then this is the database driver, database connection string. Let's go ahead and copy that. So this is it. I'm going to go ahead and copy it. Now we can go back and we can try to connect to this particular database. All right. So the first thing we need to do is to import Fluent. Import Fluent. And then we will also import the Fluent Mongo driver since we're trying to connect to a MongoDB database. And next thing is we will use a database. So app.databases.use, and what we can do is we can use a Mongo configuration. So I'll simply say go ahead and Mongo with the connection string. The connection string is the one that we already have. So I'm just going to go ahead and paste it over here. And since we're using Mongo, I'm going to go ahead and say Mongo. Okay, great. And that's it. That's how you connect. Now, we still need to provide the information about the password. And over here, you can see that we are not really providing any name of the database, so which is also required. So let's go ahead and add the name of the password. So let's remove this password thing. And I believe our password is password1234. It's a horrible password. Don't use that password, please. Use an actual real password. And you can even put it in the environment. All right. So in the .env, which is called the environment. Okay. So we have the password over here, $1234 . The other thing that we need to provide is the database. We currently don't have any database over here. So let's go ahead and provide the database. I'm just going to say moviesdb, and that's it. So this is the name of the database that I'm providing. I'm saying moviesdb. And the other thing that we're providing is the password, which is our case will be password1234 . Okay. And at this point, we can try to run our server and we can try to see that if it throws any exceptions, any problems, because when we try to run our server, all of this code is going to get fired. Okay, so it looks like it's getting fired. We are getting this warning from the custom directory thing, but that is completely different. We can easily fix that part. All right, so let's go ahead and fix that. That has, by the way, nothing to do with anything we're doing. So I'm going to go into my scheme just by edit scheme. And right over here, you can see that the working directory is kind of like empty. So you can provide some working directory over here. Like you can say is it user/Azam sharp. So basically the path to the actual folder. All right. So we can say desktop. And I guess our folder name is movies app server. If this is incorrect, then I'll put the right one. But that's all we need to do, which we learned earlier on. And let's go ahead and run the app again. Okay, that's fine. And there we go. So the server is starting. This means it's not really throwing any exception when it runs this code. So hopefully connecting to the database is working fine. So although we have connected to the database, we haven't really created any record. So in the next lecture, we'll be learning about how we can create a record, how we can insert a new movie into our database. The next step that we want to do is to create the model for the movie that we want to persist and save in the database. Now keep in mind that since we're working with MongoDB, we don't really have to create migration because MongoDB or document databases are schema-less, meaning they don't really have any schema. You don't have to define the structure of the collection beforehand to save something. So I'm just going to go into my app folder, create a brand new folder. Let's call it models. And inside the models, I'm going to add a model for a movie. So a model to represent a movie. So I'm just going to call it movie. And let's go ahead and import a couple of different things. Import Vapor, import Fluent, that's fine. And then we'll say final class movie model. And we will also conform to content because this is the model that we'll be sending back. Okay. Static, we'll say schema. And the collection will be called movies. The collection in a document DB database is kind of like a table. This means that every movie that I will create will be in a collection called movies. Next, I need to go ahead and define different properties for the movie. So the first property I'm going to go ahead and say is ID, which will be serving as the primary key for my record that I'm going to save. And the key that we'll be using will be ID. This means it will be a UUID and it will be primary key. We will also store string for the title, and the title we will use the key in MongoDB to be title. And the final thing will be the year of the movie that it was released. There we go. Next, we will go ahead and create an empty constructor. And then another constructor we will create so that we can initialize things with the ID, the title, and the year. So we will say UUID. So this will be kind of like our main constructor. We will pass in the title and we will pass in the year, which will be, well, I guess you can use year as a string. That is fine. We're not really doing any calculations with it. You can use the year as a number also if you want. So we can put integer as the year also. But in the end, I think it's more about how you want to use the year. So I'm just going to go ahead and put it as int for now. Self.id equals to ID. Title is title. And year will be year. So this will be our model that we will create. And this model, the movie, represent a single movie stored in the MongoDB database. The next task that we want to do is we want to create our controller. All right, so that we can have a controller that is performing all the different actions for the movies, like creating the movie, fetching the movies, deleting, updating, all those actions for movies. So let's go ahead. In the next lecture, we will create our controller and we will create our saving a movie route. Now let's go ahead and see that how we can persist information in our MongoDB database. I am going to go over here and create a new controller and we will call it movies controller. So movies controller. And in the movies controller, I will go ahead and import Vapor. I will also import Fluent, and I will also import Fluent driver for MongoDB, which is called Fluent Mongo driver. Let's go ahead and create a class called movies controller. In order for this to be a controller, it needs to be using the route collection protocol. And in order to conform to this protocol, you must implement the boot function where you set up all your different routes. So I want my routes to be API/movies. So I'll say API and routes.grouped, and I can simply pass in API. This means that every single route that I'm going to be creating will be starting with API/something. So let's go ahead and create a route. It will be API/movies, and this will be a post route because we are trying to post a particular movie, trying to save the movie. App.post movies, and we will use create. That's just a function. Create movie is fine also, but we can just use create if you want to. Let's go ahead and create our function. We'll call it create, which will be request, and it will return something. So that's the important part. It will return something, and it can throw an exception. So I'll say async throws, and now I can go ahead and return something. Okay. So what are we trying to do over here? Oh, sorry, it shouldn't be app.post, it should be API.post. Okay, so inside the create function, the first thing we're going to do is we are going to decode the request right into our model. Now, if you're thinking that, hold on, shouldn't we be creating our DTO objects and all that stuff? You definitely can. I mean, our application will be quite simple, so we don't really need to create that stuff for this application. It really depends if you want to create your DTOs or not. In our other application that we were doing, we wanted to return back a more flatter model because our grocery category or grocery item, they had other fields, other properties like user and all that stuff that was being returned. So over here, just to keep it super simple, I'm just going to go ahead and return the actual movie object. Okay, so let's go back, and what we want to do is we want to decode the request. So request.content.decode. This means that whatever the person is posting as JSON, we are decoding it to movie. Okay, so that's the important part, and this is going to give us the movie. So hopefully we'll get the movie there based on the decoding, and now we can go ahead and actually save it. So movie.save on the database request.db and try await. Once the movie is saved, we can return the saved movie. And since we are returning the movie, we will also go ahead and change that to movie to represent that we are going to be returning a particular movie. Let's go ahead and build the application now. And the next thing that we want to do is we want to try it out. We want to see if this particular route is working or not. And as I mentioned earlier on, for this application, we're not creating any user interface. Our user interface will be the Postman. This will be given to the user as an API. So if you want to create a web application, iOS application, Android application, you can go ahead and do that. We have covered that extensively in the last sections. So what we're trying to do is simply trying to integrate it with MongoDB database and expose an API that other users, other clients can use. If you want to create a client, that is on you. You can go ahead and create a client as an iOS app, as a web app, or as any kind of an app that you want. So now let's go ahead and use Postman and try to see if we're able to insert a particular movie to our database or not. So let's go ahead and run the application. And once our server is running, we can jump into Postman and we can try to perform a post request. So make sure that you set this to post. The URL for adding a new movie is API/movies. Headers. One of the headers that we really want to send, which most of the people will forget, is a content type application JSON. This is very important that you set this up. All right, and now we can go to the body, select raw, and then send the movie. So a movie can have a title. right? That's what we said earlier on. A movie can have a title. Let's go ahead and say that the title of the movie is Batman. And the other thing that the movie can have is the year. So I'm just going to say the year is 2023. If everything goes successfully, we should get same result, but with an ID also, because that's what we are returning. So let's go ahead and send it. Okay, so the first thing we get is not found. This means that it's not even allowing us to call that movie. Do you know why? Well, the reason is that even though we have created the movie's controller, we never really registered it. So let's go to the configure part. And over here, we will register our controller. So controllers, and the controller that we want to register is app.register. And the controller name in our case is movies controller. That is what we're trying to register. Let's go ahead and build the application again on the server and try to go ahead and run it again. Now I'm going to send the request. Now, since we're using a free account, it does take a little while to get back the result, but we eventually do get back the result. And one thing you will notice is that we do have an ID associated with the movie. This means that the movie has been successfully saved. Let's go to our database and see. Go ahead and click on Browse Collections. And here we go. So this is our movies database. We have a movies collection, and this is the new movie that we just saved. So it is going all the way to our database, which is great. In the next lecture, we'll be learning about how to get all the movies and how to get a movie by a particular ID. Meanwhile, you can go ahead and add more movies. So let's say Spider-Man 2022, send it, fine. And then we can have another one, let's say Superman, and then we can say 2020, and then send it. And now we can go ahead and check if our movies are saved. You can always click on this refresh button that is going to allow you to see the updated list. And yeah, we have all the movies, Batman, Spider-Man, and Superman. Awesome. So let's go to the next lecture and find out how we can return all the movies and how we can return a movie by using their ID. Now let's go ahead and see that how we can implement get all and get by ID. One thing that you might be noticing over here is that it is extremely similar, or maybe even exactly the same things that you have learned previously. And the main reason is because we're using the Fluent ORM. And when you use Fluent ORM, it hides all the details from you. So when you're working with it or using Fluent, you can use the same concepts as you learned when you were working with Postgres. Now, that is not saying that Postgres SQL relational database is the same as MongoDB. Obviously, they are very different databases and they can provide different benefits. But since we're using Fluent, most of the things that we're trying to do are exactly the same. So let's go ahead and move to how do we get all and get by ID. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say it's going to be get, and it will be API/movie. So the route will be the same, but it will be using the get request. And we will implement our get all function. So I'll go ahead over here and create get all, which is going to take in a request, async throws, and this is going to return you something. So I'm just going to go ahead and return movie. Now, in the previous example, you have seen that we are returning DTO. I'm just keeping it simple. So that's why I'm just returning the movie over here. Okay. And now we can go ahead and use movie.query on request.db.all. So you can see that's how simple it is to simply return all the different movies. Let's go ahead and use await. We'll build it. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and run the server and try to go to the URL which is the same URL, this one, but using the GET request. And when we go there, you'll be able to see that we will be able to get all the movies in our database. And here we go. We got an array of all the movies, which are 3 movies, the Batman, Spider-Man, and Superman, and we are able to return all of these movies. Now, what about get by ID? Let's go ahead and see how we can implement that. That, again, will be pretty much the same exact code that we have used previously. Get by ID. And this is due to we are using Fluent. Request and async throws, and it's going to return us the movie. Now, the first thing we want to do is we want to obviously create some sort of a route where people can go and get by ID. So I'm just going to go ahead and say over here, it's going to be a get route. It's going to be an API/movies, and somebody is going to pass in movie ID. So this will be the actual route. And now we can implement the movie by ID. So the first thing we need to do over here is we need to get the ID. So I'm just going to go ahead and drag or get the ID over here. And once I have the ID, I can use movie.find, and I can go ahead and paste it over here, which will be movie ID request.db. So I'm trying to find a movie using our helper function, which is movie.find. And we can use try await over here because this is an async function. This is going to give us the movie. We're using guardlet because it can return you optional, which we are trying to unwrap. If it fails to unwrap, then we will go ahead and fire not found. And we can even say the reason over here for the not found can be movie ID, and passing in the movie ID, whatever you passed in, movie ID, was not found. Okay. And finally, if it's found, then we will go ahead and return the movie. Let's go ahead and build it. And we will go ahead and run our server, and we will try to see that if we can see the movie, all the movies, which we can already, which you have already seen, that we can see all the movie. And then we will see that if we can just fetch the movie by its ID. So I'm just going to drag and copy this Spider-Man ID, paste it right there in the URL. So now we are passing the ID in the URL. And if I perform the request, I get back only Spider-Man because that ID belongs to Spider-Man. If I mess around with the ID, then I get nothing, not found. Okay. So there you have it. We have implemented getting all the movies and also getting the movies by ID. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the delete request. Delete means that the HTTP method will be delete. The URL can be /API/movies and then passing in the movie ID that we want to delete. We will use API.delete movies, just like the above path that we're trying to create, movie ID, and we will use a function, we'll create a function called delete movie. Nice and simple. Let's create a function, delete movie, request, and once the movie has been deleted, that is the movie that we're going to return back, just to say that this has been deleted. Now the first thing that we need to do is to get the actual the ID in the route parameter. Once we're able to do that, we can use the find function to find the movie based on the route parameter. And now it's simple as movie.delete. And once we delete the movie on the request.db, we can go ahead and return the movie. And that's it. So it's very similar to get by ID, where you're getting the movie, you're extracting the ID, you're getting the movie, and then you are returning it. So let's go ahead and run this. And we're going to try to delete a particular movie by its ID. So let's open this up, go back over here, and try to find, first of all the movies so that we can just pick one movie that we want to delete. So I'm just going to go ahead and perform a request. Actually, I think I did the wrong request over here because we ended up adding a movie. So let's go ahead and do a get request. Okay. So we have two Supermans because I added this one by accident. So let's go ahead and get this ID that we want to delete. And we will change this to delete protocol or delete HTTP method, passing in the ID that we want to delete. And that's it. We will send it. It's going to return us back the movie it just deleted. And now if we go back to our database and refresh it, we will see one Superman, not two Superman. So here we go, one Superman. If you want to delete that one Superman also, get the ID, pass it over here, and that should also be deleted. Let's go ahead and refresh it. And it's gone. Now we have only Batman and Spider-Man. So we are able to delete a particular movie from MongoDB database too. The next step that we want to do is how to update the movie. So let's go ahead and learn that in the next lecture. Now let's go ahead and see that how we can perform updating a movie. In order to perform an update, we are going to use put. Again, the URL will be API/movie/ we're going to pass in the movie ID, but in this case, we will also be passing in the body because the body will contain all the data that is the updated data. So API.put, and we'll use movies and passing in the movie ID. And we'll call it update movie. Now, there is no such thing as update movie. So once again, we'll create a function called update movie, request like this, async, throws, and the update movie is going to return you the updated movie. The first thing we need to do is to use the route parameters movie ID to get the movie ID. So we have the route parameters. We're going to try to get the movie ID out of it. If it's not found, we're just going to say not found. Now, using that approach, now we're going to go ahead and decode the body. But before decoding the body, you can also try to find the movie that you're trying to update. If the movie is not present, there's no sense to decode the body. Now, let's go ahead and decode the body. Decode the body, which basically means that we are going to, whenever the person is sending some JSON, we're going to decode it to our movie. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll call it update movie. And now, hopefully we will have the movie that we fetch from our database. We can say movie.title equals to update movie.title. So this is the update movie.title is the one that is coming as a JSON request from the client. Movie.year, and this will be again, as you can guess, update movie.year. Finally, we're going to go ahead and call the update function, and this is going to allow us to update. And once it is updated, we will return you the updated movie. And there you have it. Let's go ahead and try to run this. And we will see that if we are able to update an existing movie or not. So if I go over here to our application, the first thing I need to do is just get all the movies to get a sense of what movies do we have in our MongoDB database. So you can see that the route that I'm going is API/movies. Okay, so I have two movies. I have Batman and Spider-Man. I want to update Batman. So I'm just going to copy this URL and put it right there. Make sure you change this to put, or else your route is not going to work. And also, we need to add the body. The body will contain the updated movie stuff, meaning what new title that you want for your Batman movies. I'm just going to say Batman Begins. And other thing that you are already noting over here is that this text should be JSON. So how can I set that? In the headers. Good. Let's go to the headers. Content type. Not content transfer. Content type to be application JSON. Let's go back to the body again, and we also need to fill out the year. So let's say the year is also, we'll call it 2010 for some reason. Okay. So now we are updating a movie. This is the movie ID. The title is getting updated and the year is getting updated. So basically everything is getting updated, the title and the year. So let's go ahead and send it. And it returns us the updated movie. Let's go to our database and find out if it's updated. Make sure to refresh it. Let's refresh it. And Batman Begins right there. And also the year has been updated. So there you have it. We have done creating a movie, reading a movie, updating a movie, deleting a movie. So with the MongoDB database, and you may be wondering that it all looks very familiar. And that's the beauty of when you're using Fluent ORM. It kind of hides those things from you so that you are just using the same exact API to perform these operations.